If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniak. Hello everyone. Before we start this video, I want to know, what's the most scary thing that you've ever seen in the snow, in the woods, or in winter generally? I don't think I've really had one before, but I've always thought it'd be one of the most scary things, seeing footprints around where you know they shouldn't be. So let me know in the comments below, and let's get settled into this video. Now first off, this is the only creepy and scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life, which is probably why it stands out in my memory. In hindsight, the location and general isolation probably added to my fears, but I felt like I was stumbling into the scene of a horror film. So just over 10 years ago, I was fresh out of college, moved back to my parents' home for free rent and food. This was for 9 months or so, because I was leaving the state for my graduate school. Now my parents are super chill and gave me my own space in the home, but being a 22-year-old single guy and living at a house in the sticks is certainly not ideal. But I didn't have any other options, so I started looking for some work, more to pass time than save up money. Anyway, the summer turns to winter, and I haven't got anything solid, but by then, I desperately needed to spend more time out of my parents' home, so I took a part-time gig doing some light bookkeeping for a small business. I didn't really want to do it since it didn't pay much, was short term, wasn't even a real office set up, but again, since my parents lived in the middle of the Midwest, I knew I had limited local opportunities to make some cash. And this guy was going to pay me under the table as well. About that time, a friend of mine in the city said that if I paid him just $200 a month and cleared up, he'd basically let me crash in his living room until I was ready to go out of state. That's all I need to hear. I take the job. So my dad's friend had a construction type business. They helped out with building stuff a little, but ultimately was more focused on renting out a few bobcats and large Cougars they owned. Also other various drills, and then odds and ends like generators and other low-level construction or farming equipment that someone in that area couldn't afford to purchase but needed for the time. Now this was small and pop type of thing where everyone knew each other, and the office only opened on days when that someone was coming by, and was just generally a mutually beneficial situation for the business owners and locals. Since I had minored in a business adjacent to the area my dad recommended me, they trusted me to go in there for about 20 hours a week and check and file the rental forms. Make sure nobody missed a payment date if there was a payment plan in place, answer an email, or just discuss prices and whatnot. AKA super easy gig. The old building where I worked was about 90 years old, at the top of the little hill, and the downstairs used to be an old country bar until the 1970s when this family bought it for cheap, cleared it out, clears the bar, and fenced in the property to use it as a parking lot area to store their rental equipment and gear. I could generally come and go as I pleased, work any hours I wanted, as long as there's work that had to be done. So if things were slow, and there weren't any rentals for a couple of days, I'd usually go in after 7 and stay until around midnight or 1, since I knew I'd be alone and could listen to music loud and all that. The office where I worked was on the 2nd floor of the building above the old bar, and looked out onto the long driveway. From my seat, I could easily see out the window, and once or twice saw a family of deer or a raccoon scamper by. And I always glanced out when I saw movement, since it's very noticeable. It was incredibly remote, very still and quiet, so if something usually occurred or felt off, I noticed it. One night during winter, it snowed for a few inches, and my dad told me to stay in cause the roads are so bad. But I had an old SUV, and more than that, wanted to get out of the house. So I go into work at about 8 PM, and was going to stay until just after 1. I always left the gate open at the bottom of the hill, since, believe me, when I say nobody ever showed up at night, since we're literally in the middle of nowhere, no one would. I think the nearest occupied house was 2 miles away, and to even turn onto our short road, you had to not only be coming to our specific building, but would probably be coming to us only. It was a locals only type thing, and very small, since a family had inherited a lot of money and kind of did this rental thing on the side. Basically, someone would never just get lost and show up here. So I'm jamming out to Fall Out Boy and having some coffee, and kept glancing at the snow outside here and there, since our one orangish green light reflects onto the ground at the gate, causing the light to shine off the snow in a really cool way. At one point around midnight, I went downstairs to the big bathroom and come back up and get settled into my work. I probably did about 5 minutes of work then, when I glanced outside, see a huge imprint of something in the fresh snow below the light. It seems like it must have been a huge dog or animal that's just rolled around on the ground and then left. Since I didn't notice it just 15 minutes before, it had to have happened while I was in the bathroom, since I would have seen the movement to cause it otherwise. I shook it off and amused a dog, or maybe even a farm animal. Who knows? At around 2 in the morning, I was leaving. I get out of my car to lock up the gate, and I honestly pretty much forgotten about the imprint in the snow But when I looked down, I was shocked to see that it wasn't just some disturbed snow now, but undeniably the imprint of a human-made snow angel. If you don't know what a snow angel is, it's when kids lie on their back in the snow, push their arms and legs back and forth, so when they get up it looks like an angel. I used to do it when I was a kid, so I 100% knew for sure that's what it was. It was deliberately made underneath a light post, but not from a kid, from a large person, or at the very least, a normal-sized adult wearing tons of layers of winter clothing. I look up and see what I already knew, that whoever made this snow angel could easily look up and have seen me through the window. So they must have waited for me to head downstairs to make the angel. Now, I definitely would have seen or heard if someone drove up to our building, so I knew someone had to have walked deep into the freezing cold for a few miles, stopping in front of our building, then doing a snow angel in the small amount of time that I wasn't sitting in the front desk of my window. I glanced around for tracks in the snow and saw that there was one set that led to the nearby woods, to the right of the building, so it was clear the person didn't use the road, but instead would have come from the opposite side, which made me instantly uneasy, since that side was just trees and darkness for miles and miles. I was definitely a little freaked out now once I realized that someone had just done this recently, so close to me, secretly in the middle of the woods, and I looked around, but didn't see anything amiss at all, and now I just want to get the hell out of there. When I got back in my car and drove a few feet, I realized that my boss would be there in 4 hours and might see the snow angel, assuming I did it, since they assumed I keep the gate locked. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal at all, but I was young and felt like I might have been made fun of for it. So I opened the gate back up real quick, ran over, kicking the snow around so it hid the angel, locked up, and went back to my car. Now I'm terrified at this point, and it was certainly unsettling. I just thought it was really weird, and it could have been an illegal hunter. Either way, the imprint was made when I was not there. I assumed they were long gone, but that's when I heard it. When I was getting into my SUV, there's the loudest high-pitched laughing coming from the woods. It almost sounded like a fake laugh, like the Witch and Wizard of Oz. Like someone was doing it fake on purpose to show that they're not scared of me, or to see how I'd react. It was close enough that I knew they probably could not see me, but I could not see them at all, since there's only the street lights. I was under there, and there's no illumination around. After a few seconds of laughing, they stopped. Then it's just silence everywhere, except for my heart beating through my ears, then laughing, getting louder this time, more like screaming and laughing combined. I sort of froze for like 5 seconds, listening in panic. Now I spent a lot of time in that area. I know what coyotes and foxes sounded like at night with their high-pitched screeches. But this was different. This was an adult male trying to emulate a woman laughing. Like someone was deliberately trying to make a fake scary shriek laugh in order to scare someone. Well, it worked. After 5 seconds, I immediately filled with adrenaline, getting back in my car, driving as quick as I possibly can, slightly sliding off the road. Back at home, I was up all night trying to figure out what had happened, telling my parents the story. Now, I didn't have any close friends left in that area that would do this, and if they did, they certainly would have brought it up to make fun of me for speeding away in terror. I found out later that the closest people were a super old couple, so I highly doubt it was them. This means whoever it was went out in the woods, in the dead of night, in the freezing cold. I don't have any mental illnesses or issues like that. No one in my family does either. I didn't do drugs, so I knew it was in none of that stuff. I worked there for another 6 weeks or so, never having a single issue again, though I knew where my boss kept his gun. I always made sure it was there whenever I started working, and I certainly always kept the gate locked from now on. Thinking about this experience at night, the part that freaks me out the most about this is that he would have had to have waited up there for 2 hours just to do that laugh at me. This has honestly haunted me ever since it happened to me.